If you are a Gemini, you already know what I am about to say. And you have never heard anyone say it this clearly. You are not two people. You are one person who has learned, very early, that the world cannot handle all of you at once. So you became a curator. A selector. You decide, in real time, which version of yourself this room, this person, this moment deserves. Most people who know a Gemini have felt this without having a word for it. That slight vertigo of wondering which one showed up today. Stay with me. Because later in this video, I am going to tell you something about Gemini's relationship to truth, not lying, something far more precise than that will reframe everything you thought you understood about this sign. Gemini is ruled by Mercury, the planet of transmission. Not thought. Transmission. There is a difference. Thought is internal. Transmission is relational. Gemini does not process the world and then engage it. They process the world through engaging it. Remove the audience and you remove half the cognition. This is why Gemini is so often misread as superficial. They move fast across topics, across people, across opinions. But that velocity is not avoidance. It is data collection. Gemini is running parallel threads at all times, cross-referencing lived experience against every idea they have ever encountered. The symbol is the twins, but the deeper symbol is the bridge. Gemini exists in the space between things. Between serious and playful. Between intimacy and distance. Between what they believe right now and what they might believe tomorrow. They are not unstable. They are genuinely, constitutionally open. And that openness is a form of intellectual courage that almost no one credits them for. Here is where it gets precise. Gemini does not lie the way other signs lie. They do not fabricate. They perform strategic incompleteness. They give you a version of the truth that is technically accurate but architecturally designed to produce a specific impression. Psychologists call this selective self-disclosure. Gemini has mastered it without ever attending a class. The consequence is that people around Gemini begin to feel, over time, like they are holding a portrait of someone rather than knowing the actual person. Close friends sometimes realize, years in, that Gemini has never once been caught off guard. That every revelation felt curated. That the intimacy, real as it felt, was also managed. This is not malice. This is armor. Gemini learned early that full exposure produces judgment. So they pre-edit. They deliver themselves in installments, watching your reaction before releasing the next chapter. The tragedy is that this behavior, designed to maintain connection, is exactly what prevents the depth of connection Gemini privately craves more than almost anything. Here is what Gemini will never admit to themselves. Gemini is one of the loneliest signs in the zodiac. Not because they lack people. They are surrounded by people. They are magnetic, articulate, endlessly interesting to be around. The loneliness is structural. It lives inside the performance itself. Because when you are always the most compelling version of yourself, you lose track of who exists when no one is watching. Gemini does not always know. They have spent so long adapting, reflecting, translating themselves for different audiences that the unperformed self becomes a stranger. The real crisis for Gemini is not which twin is real. It is the terrifying suspicion that neither of them is. Gemini in love is one of the most exhilarating experiences another person can have. They bring wit, unpredictability, genuine curiosity about who you are. They will remember what you said 6 months ago and connect it to something you said yesterday. They make you feel profoundly seen in the early stages. But Gemini requires mental stimulation the way other signs require physical affection. It is not optional. It is biological. The moment a relationship loses intellectual friction, Gemini begins to detach. Not always loudly. Sometimes they simply become less present, more distracted, somehow thinner in the room. Their partners often mistake this detachment for cruelty. It is not. It is closer to grief. Gemini mourns the loss of aliveness in a relationship long before they are willing to name it out loud. The partner who keeps Gemini is not the most beautiful or the most stable. It is the one who keeps becoming. Who refuses to be fully decoded. Who always has one more room Gemini has not yet entered. You are not too much. You are not inconsistent. You are not flaky, shallow, or impossible to pin down. You are a person who has been penalized, repeatedly, for having a mind that moves faster than most people are comfortable with. So you learn to slow yourself down for rooms that could not keep up. That is not a flaw. That is a form of social generosity you have never once been thanked for. But here is the cost. The more you curate, the further you drift from yourself. The performance of Gemini can become so polished, so second nature, that the question of who exists beneath it starts to feel dangerous. Do not let it go unanswered. The work for Gemini is not to choose one twin over the other. It is to stop treating your own complexity as something that requires management. Find the room, find the person, find the practice where all of you is allowed in at once. That is not chaos. That is finally coming home. You do not need to be understood by everyone. You need, at least once, to be understood completely. Gemini is not a paradox to be solved. They are a frequency most people are not calibrated to receive. Complex, luminous, and carrying a loneliness they have dressed up so well it almost looks like confidence. If this profile reached something in you, share it with someone who needs the language for what they have been feeling. Understanding a sign this clearly is not just interesting. It is useful. Subscribe to Astrea Zodiac for daily cosmic intelligence. This is your universe speaking.